As this chaotic year that is 2020 advances, I think one of the bright spots thus far, for the most part, has been gaming. Besides Blizzard's recent blunder with the whole Warcraft 3 Reforged disaster, 2020 at least up to this point has been pretty decent, pretty solid. Although, and maybe this is important to note, typically the beginning of the year is slow and things usually start to ramp up right around this time of the year when AAA game publishers announce their upcoming games and start building some hype and or they prepare for a huge E3 reveal of sorts, but obviously this year is drastically different. We are in uncertain times and nobody really has a good idea of what to expect in the coming weeks and months. Unfortunately, as I said in my last video, I have to be very careful with talking about our current global situation because YouTube not working all that great right now, which I mean for a platform that already has so many issues even before this crisis, well, it's an even bigger headache right now. But anyway, so far here in 2020 we've been blessed with some very good gaming experiences, from id Software once again delivering with the glorious Doom Eternal, to Animal Crossing New Horizons being a delightful time for really any and everyone, to Ori and the Will of the Wisps receiving universal acclaim, to Valve returning big time with Half-Life Alyx, to Call of Duty Warzone blowing up and breaking records, to Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord finally releasing after 8 years, to just some extremely fun game demos of Final Fantasy VII Remake and Resident Evil 3 Remake. These games have and will hopefully get people through these tough times. Now, while various newly released titles and ongoing live services see a significant boost in sales numbers and or active players due to the current world situation, there still is the question of how the current global crisis could drastically affect this AAA games industry later this year and or once things eventually return to whatever you consider normal. Today we're going to break down some of the growing concerns spreading throughout this industry, which includes delays and how some of gaming's biggest companies may or may not respond to the financial damage this crisis has and will cause. But as usual, if you do go on to enjoy this content and want to show your support for gaming coverage like this, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing for more, and turning notifications on so you do not miss out on any new videos. Should be noted also, behind the scenes, even through hectic times like this, I am working on some different types of content, so expect to see some of that in the coming days. But even right now, in our current living situations, gaming is indeed booming, something that many analysts have recognized and have tried getting investors to jump towards. Now, it doesn't take an expert to realize what's obvious. So many are at home and spending that time playing video games, which clearly benefits this industry. While this is indeed good, the concern is really not necessarily now, but down the road, when this current global crisis eventually slows down. Which that's kind of the problem. There's just so much uncertainty on when that slowdown will occur, and what the global economy will look like by then. For now though, things do not look very good. Bloomberg recently noted in a piece titled "Gaming Boom Hides Struggle to Create New Hits in Isolation" that gaming is experiencing an unprecedented boom right now, but behind the scenes, the crisis is hitting the $150 billion industry in subtle yet significant ways, delaying crucial development, squeezing out smaller studios, and disrupting the pipeline of new games heading into 2021. Which sadly, one of the big parts of this industry affected by this mess already are indie or just independent game companies that rely and need publisher support. That's actually the importance of conferences like E3 and GDC, which have since been cancelled. Without these events though, it's very likely some indie game studios will go under, unable to get the funding needed to continue. But getting back to this Bloomberg piece, they next state, at a time when Valve's Steam online gaming service is breaking records and global gaming publishers are registering increased demand due to millions of people stuck at home, the systems designed to build those companies' future success are faltering. Complicating matters, new consoles from Microsoft and Sony slated for the end of the year mean even more development work for already hard-pressed studios, said Billy Pigeon, analyst at Go Play Research. EA, Activision, Ubisoft, and others track games on a profit/loss basis to determine whether they will be completed on time. and they do not hesitate to cancel ones they deem to have a low chance of profitability. For now, big publishers are assuring the public that the global situation isn't hampering them too badly. Ubisoft Entertainment said in a statement that at this moment the impact of the worldwide situation on Ubisoft Productions is minimal and has not affected our release schedule for the upcoming fiscal year. The longer-term effects, however, are difficult to quantify. There's really little visibility into that right now, given we don't know how long this will last, how effective they can be remote, and how complete games are already, said Matthew Kannerman of Bloomberg Intelligence. So there's a few very key points mentioned in this Bloomberg piece. Like as I mentioned before, indie companies are being hit hard, and AAA gaming is indeed booming. Although the EAs and Activisions, Bethesdas of this industry, like so many other companies, are losing billions upon billions in market value, with their stock values seeing significant drops. Furthermore, the big delays are on the way, and some have actually already came. Wired Productions announced that both Deliver Us the Moon and Those Who Remain were being delayed. Publisher Private Division announced that they were delaying the Outer Worlds Switch Edition. The second round of DLC characters for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate have been delayed. Bethesda Game Studios announced that they were delaying the Fallout 76 Wastelanders update by a week, and EA DICE announced that the next big update, Star Wars Battlefront 2 Battle for Scarif, has been delayed until mid-April. This is just the beginning, as indicated by Kotaku's Jason Schreier, who took to Twitter to say, "Not the most important thing in the world right now, but it won't be too much longer before the crisis-related video game delays start. Games that are planned for this month and maybe April should be fine, but after that, all bets are off." Jason Schreier would further give a very notable response to a question on this post, one that I'm sure many of you have, and that is, can't studios work remotely and get everything done? And Schreier would state, "We'll have to see whether game devs can still get everything done remotely. One bigger issue will be disc manufacturing plants. For games further out, ESRB ratings may be hard to come by, and many other logistical issues along the way." Adding on to this, as Bloomberg noted, this global situation was already interrupting the supply chain for game art and assets, as many big publishers rely on outsourcing to art studios in China, which was first to suffer the effects. Then there's the issue of things like motion capture work or performance work not being possible right now, something that Glenn Schofield, former co-head of Sledgehammer Games and now founder of Striking Distance Studios, recently mentioned. Other experts like Streamline Media Group CEO Alexander Fernandez has also warned that the games industry has yet to truly feel the damage from this crisis. Equivalent to about 2/3 of the external development outsourcing supply is located in China, and they've been thrown completely out of whack. China has been a top destination for years for outsourcing services in video games, primarily driven by its low costs and scale of available talent. This creates what the banking industry refers to as a concentration risk. I believe it will take a quarter or two for the extent to become glaringly obvious through missed dates or development delays. The problem is the havoc this will cause for public companies and the damage it causes to the entire value chain. It's a situation where people need to be able to get projects done, and some companies couldn't even go into their offices without approval from the Chinese government. And we're talking about thousands of people, not a couple of hundred. I think we're going to really start feeling this in quarter 2 or quarter 3. This is why games that were due out later this year may face some big problems very soon. And interestingly, publishers like Sony and Microsoft have both indicated that delays are possible for some of their upcoming first-party games. Sony putting out a statement the other day saying that they are carefully monitoring the risks of delay in production schedules for game software titles at both its first-party studios and partner studios, primarily in Europe and the United States. Sony's most notable upcoming games do include The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, which are both due out in just a few months. Microsoft also put out a statement the other day with Xbox head Matt Booty saying that each of their studios is facing unique challenges and constraints depending on its particular location, and many of our external development partners around the world are similarly affected. We are supporting our studio leaders to make the right decisions for their teams and their individual games during this challenging time, which, while no delays have actually been announced yet, the possibility is indeed there depending on how things develop with this global mess. So indeed, the live service multiplayer experiences already released like Call of Duty Warzone and just newer games in general will benefit benefit from the circumstances we're all dealing with for now, but as this continues, things become, or at the very least look, a lot more unpredictable, which may result in some publishers releasing products later this year that are either not finished or have issues, like EA with their yearly FIFA installment or Madden, Activision with the next Call of Duty game, and Take-Two Interactive with the next NBA 2K game or WWE 2K. Would these industry giants sacrifice missing the holiday season to ensure that they are putting out a complete $60 product? I think most of you know that answer already. These companies have financial goals, expectations that they need to hit, and as we've seen time and time again over the years, quality or even employee care is not considered a priority, so releasing an incomplete product at launch loaded with microtransactions is something that already happens, but well, I just really think things are going to be very interesting this fall. Furthermore, besides the annual releases and first-party games from either Sony or Microsoft, there are major questions on what third-party titles will be impacted by this global situation. For Bethesda, does this maybe benefit or make it more likely that Fallout 76 has a chance to actually make a huge comeback if Wastelanders is good, or does this push their next big single-player RPG Starfield further back? Some believed we could see a release later this year. Now, I'm not even sure that's even possible. Even just as publisher, one does have to wonder if a company like Bethesda wants to take risks this fall. Besides what appears to be a massive success with Doom Eternal, Bethesda has had a lot of trouble in recent years, with franchises that include The Evil Within, Wolfenstein, Rage, Dishonored, and Prey all underperforming in sales. This is likely something other publishers like Warner Brothers and maybe even Ubisoft are evaluating before announcing a lineup of huge AAA games. Another live service that could be impacted by this is EA's BioWare Anthem 2.0, which certainly could be pushed even further back, and while that game is certainly the closest thing to the word dead, does that maybe make it more likely that the relaunch experiment will result in little interest whenever it does come about? Now, if there is a bright spot in all of this, many high-profile upcoming 2020 releases have already seen pretty big delays, and most of the necessary work left to be finished can be done remotely. That's supposedly the case with Cyberpunk 2077 right now. Developer CD Projekt Red recently saying in a statement that the game is still on course for its September release. And even before then, CDPR studio head Adam Badowski had announced in early March that the game was being sent to age rating agencies around the world, and that they were currently focused on playtesting and polishing the experience. Essentially, the game is nearly complete, and this was further emphasized in a recent German interview from GameStar, in which CDPR senior quest designer Philip Weber and senior level designer Miles Tost discussed what it's been like working remotely, which largely involves playtesting and bug fixes. Miles Tost was asked at one point to respond to people like me who, well in my case, jokingly wondered if they could just release the game early due to the current global situation, and Tost responded emphasizing that they needed the delay from the original April release date to September to ensure that they are giving people the quality experience that they've come to expect from CD Projekt Red, and he also added, "Do you want an 8 or a 10? I have a sneaking suspicion that other notable upcoming games that have already been delayed should be ready to go later this year, but that won't be the case for all of them, as again, some work just cannot be done remotely. For example, one does have to wonder if a story-focused experience like the long-rumored Viking Assassin's Creed game will be ready to go, considering the amount of motion capture or performance work that is needed to be done. Then there's also a game like Activision's Call of Duty 2020, a supposed Black Ops reboot, which has reportedly had a chaotic development. While delay is unlikely, it's possible that Activision either cancels the single-player campaign and focuses on the live service multiplayer like they did with Black Ops 4, or they just delay certain content until a later date, which is something that we could see to various degrees throughout this whole industry. But it really cannot be understated, the longer the economy falls and this crisis goes on for, the more unpredictable the future looks. As we've discussed in a recent video, there are growing concerns over the launch of next-gen consoles. Physical distribution, which still does make up a lot of game sales, has been severely impacted. Just in the United States, unemployment is surging, and yes, that does impact whether or not people can spend $60 on a game or $400 on a new console, which for many is seen as a luxury, especially now. There's just so many factors to consider right now, and I do think it's important to have a real discussion on the ramifications that could come from our global situation on the games industry. Some game companies may jump on this situation attempting to capitalize on this mess by releasing incomplete, greedy live service products. Some game companies may not bother playing around with an unpredictable market and instead delay completed games further out to ensure maximum success when things eventually get back to normal. That actually may be one of the reasons why we're not seeing many game announcements. That's actually been indicated by some analysts. Some game companies, like the industry leaders have done so often, may lay off staff to make up for the financial losses that they have and could face. Nobody wants to be GameStop right now, or at the very least face the backlash that they are dealing with. But once this is all over, I think it's pretty obvious that the EAs and Activisions of this industry will be a lot less generous, which could either lead to developers having to crunch on certain upcoming games that are behind in production, or again, layoffs. But for now, it really is encouraging seeing so many different game companies coming together during these rough times. Just a few examples of the good going around right now includes Razer shifting some production to surgical masks, and the company plans to donate produced masks to frontline healthcare staff. Blizzard, like so many companies, have gone remote, but before doing so, the company sent thousands of packages containing essentials to staff, and they additionally are still paying janitorial, security, and cafe staff their standard wages during this time. Nintendo of America has donated more than 9,500 masks to the state of Washington. Riot Games and the company's executives have donated $1.5 million to various relief organizations. CD Projekt Red has made a donation of $950,000 to Poland's biggest charity foundation to help battle this crisis, and Microsoft has made educational content free in Minecraft in response to widespread school closures. The content ranging from marine biology to human anatomy and Greek mythology. Players can even explore an international space station thanks to a partnership with NASA. So no, not everything is doom and gloom, and it really is encouraging seeing so many ways that gaming is positively impacting and touching the lives of people during these rough and tough times. But things are going to get real soon. The financial damage has been minimal thus far, but that may change with huge disruptions happening now across the board. So far, there have been numerous reports of QA testers, event organizers, and other games industry employees losing their jobs due to this global crisis. And again, this is still the beginning. But anyway, many of you are at home, so what games are you playing to pass the time? And what do you make of the impact this global situation is and will have on this games industry? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games, and again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later. Also, stay home, stay safe.